Hey, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our VFX core skills for beginners. So we've done quite a lot of prep work so far, and we've started some of the creative stuff now, the modelling. So now we're going to finish off modelling with doing our UVs. Then we'll duplicate the objects that need duplicating, so we don't have to UV it twice. And then we'll make a higher res model ready for sculpting. So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying this series. Yeah, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this. So I've opened up Maya, and you can see we've got the model that we made from the previous tutorial. You could be using completely different software, it's fine. Pretty much these skills go across all sort of softwares. It's just I'm using Maya because I use it all the time basically. And it's what I feel most comfortable in. So now we're gonna do our UVing. I'll try and make this quick because I've done a lot of UVing tutorials and I'm sure most people already noted it, but I'm just going to do it anyway just in case there are some people that have never done it before and they're following this series. So we need UV so we can map on textures and do some sculpting, and they're pretty essential for most things on models. And yeah, if you become modeling or texture artist, you'll get to know UVs a lot. So first of all, I'm going to select my front and I press Ctrl 1. And the reason why I've selected my front is because this is probably what I'm going to see the most. And then I can set my texel density to whatever I can get from this without breaking it down. Cool. So if I open my UV editor, you can see, if I just turn that off, my UVs are nasty. This is bad. You don't ever want this. This is just because you can sort of see the original cube UVs that we made. Then all this is the sort of history that's been put on top. So I can just minimize that. And the first thing that I always do is just go to UV and delete the UVs and just get rid of them. But I want to make seams, but you can't make seams without having UVs on there. So we need to go to UV and camera based. If we just select on this, we can now see it's done a camera based projection for making UVs, which is fine for the front, but as you can see the sides, it's pretty nasty. We'll turn on the checkerboard. You can see everything looks great from this position, but if we move around, it all looks pretty nasty on the sides. But this gives us a starting point to make our seams. So I'm just going to right click and select my edge. And I'm going to turn my checker box off because it does get a bit annoying. And I'm just going to double select the center of these bevels. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do here. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Do these ones here. Just got the center of these bevels on the back, just using Control Shift. Cool. So far we've selected the inside of these edges, the inside of these, all the way around the back here in these sort of middle parts. So I'm just going to go to my UV toolkit, and if you don't have this on the side, you can just it might come in like this, but you can just drag and drop it to the tabs. And it should add on. So I'm going to select cut, and you should be able to see the color change. If I deselect that now, just select it anywhere outside, you can see that everything that we've just cut is highlighted, and this means we've removed seams. So if I now go back to my UV editor, I can see that we've got our UVs and these seams. So I'm just going to right click, select UV shell, and I press W to move it out of the way. And we've got this middle bit here. So we do need to make one more cut. So I'm just going to right click on my edge. And I'm going to select this in my, because you can select it in your UV editor as well. And select cut. Cool. So first thing that we'll do is start with the front. So we'll just double check that is the front. And it is. And you can go to, let me just make this a little bit bigger. You can go to modify, unfold, or you can select Control U, and as you can see here, that's unfolded it. And we can sort of see it's stretched everything out. So we want to make sure, so if we turn our checkerboard on, we can see it's all nicely UV'd. We can go to our arrange and layout, select orientate shells, and that'll slightly smooth it out. Not smooth it out, orientate it more vertically. And then if I go to my unfold, we can select optimize. And this should relax it a little bit. These should be pointing up because they're sort of on an angle. So I'm just gonna now scale this till it fits the maximum of a UV. And because I know I'm using Substance for this, you can be using Mari, Photoshop, anything. For this one, we can use Substance, which is good, and Mari's great as well. They're both really good. They both almost do the same thing these days, but it's always the artist using it that makes the softwares are pretty good. It's just what you make out of it. But because I know I'm going to put this into Substance, I kind of want to keep my UDIMs down. So you can have a few UDIMs in there before it starts slowing down, but I'm going to max my front out to 1 UDIM space. So now I've got this, and I can press Control 1, and we can see that it's pretty much going to be covering the whole thing. So press Control U on that, and that should unfold. And we'll go to orientate shells. Sometimes it doesn't orientate it the correct way, but you can give it a little nudge the right way and select orientate, and it should fix it. So I'm just going to pull this up here, and I'm effectively just going to Control U, and I'm just going to lay these out sort of roughly how I want. So these may look the same, but they're probably not. So I'm going to base everything off this. As for texel density, which basically means the amount of pixel space you can get on your image, basically. So, for example, we can see you've got on the front, if we had a high-res image, it'd still look pretty good. But you see how these squares are much bigger. It would effectively, imagine it being more zoomed in, so you're going to see more not very nice detail. But we need to make sure that these squares are matched in size. So the easiest way to do this is select our sort of hero UV, go to transform, and you can go to this get texel density, and if you select get, it's now red. The texel density is 20.5. So now if we select this and go set, that's now adjusted it to the same texel density. And if we do the same for this one, cool. So as you can see, I'm sort of organizing these as I go. And I guess it doesn't matter which way you orientate your UVs really, as long as they're all consistent. So if you think about this as wood grain, the wood grain would be going up or down. So you want to make sure everything else, so basically anything with a directional material, you need to make sure they're all going the same way. And I believe Substance is standard up and down for sort of directional textures. So I'm going to make sure what is up and what is down basically. So you can see this is the top and this is the bottom. And this should work the best in Substance. So I've got that for our front one. So now we're just going to work around. And what I can do whilst I'm doing this, I can just hide it as I go along. And you know what? We can delete that because we're just going to do that and duplicate it. So same again, UV, delete UVs, select it, and go UV camera based. So now if I control 1, so with this one, we do see the bottom bit there, so we'll just do the same. So we'll just select my edges. Obviously, if you want to put more UDIM space in there, you can. It just means it will be slower in Substance. Although Substance can, although Substance can do UDIMs now, it's not as good as Mari, obviously, but it's still pretty good. Let's not take anything away from it. It's pretty good. So I'm just going to select those edges. Pretty much the same edges as I did last time, although now I have gone out of my isolated selection. So I'm just going to go cut, back to my object mode, then isolate that. So I can isolate the whole thing, go back to my edges, and select cut. So now we've basically done the exact same thing. The difference with this is it's up to you whether if you want to do this. I'm not too bothered about the inside because we're never going to see this, so I'm actually going to scale this down. I don't want this inside bit to take up too much UDIM space. I want this to be the same, but things we don't see, I don't want it to take up loads of UDIM space. So we'll just see first before we do anything like that. So I'll just press Control U, pull this to the side, and I can roughly sort of orientate it. Ooh. Select orientate shells. Just check that. Even though it's we're not really going to see it, still want to make sure that it's the correct way around. So I'm going to do the same. Control U on that one. If you orientate shells, no, it didn't do it. But we can just rotate it around roughly and select orientate shells again. Cool, so that's the right way around. So our next thing to do is go to our textile density and set it. And you can see it's actually slightly larger now. So this could be an issue. So we'll just set. Cool, so maybe we should have actually done it to our largest piece, which would have been our back. But I'm not too worried about that for now. We can fix this. So I am just going to place that there. Obviously this is way too, we can't have it like this, so we need to adjust our textile density. Let's press Control 1. I'm just going to unhide that. So I'm just going to select both of these, UV shell, select them all, right, and scale them all down together until this fits in. We want to make sure that it's definitely getting the maximum UV space and make sure they're not overlapping. Cool. So now we can readjust these. And we know that they're the same textile density. Cool. So the good thing about this is it's exactly the same as the other side. So we're going to just press Control D, duplicate it across. We don't need to flip it or anything. Actually we do. So let's select this in the X. No. So we flipped it because you can either redo your seams or you can flip it. But now you can see, because now our seams are on the inside, that we can't see it. But when you flip stuff, you need to make sure, remember that it also flips the UVs. So you can now see our UVs are backwards. So we do need to fix that as well. So select our UVs, go to our UV editor. And if we go to transform, there should be a... Where is it? There should be a flip scale. There we are, flip U. So if we select flip U, we can now see it's flipped it around the other way. And if we could look in our UV while we do it, we can see that it's just flipping the UVs the correct way around. So that's all good. And we'll just move this to the next UV space. And those are pretty much done, those sides. So we've done our front, our sides, not our back. So, and they're all looking pretty good. So I'm just going to hide those. Oh, let's undo that. I forgot that I need to select get textile density now because we've changed it. So now our textile density is 16.9. So I can now just hide these. And I'm just going to do the same thing as I did before. Select my object, UV, delete UVs, select my model, press 1. It's easier to do it out of the smooth mode because we can fix that afterwards. Go UV, camera based. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing. Just going to select these edges. You can turn the checkerboard off if it gets in the way. And if you're used to UVs, I guess you can probably just skip past this. Cool, so I've selected those seams. I'm just going to go cut again. And I always do my UVs manual. I never use auto because it makes too much mess, I find. And it's not worth the effort of fixing it up. So I'm just going to turn my checkerboard on so I can see. And these look a little bit rectangular. So let's double check. I bet there's some history on here. Yeah, there's history. So you need to make sure you delete all your history. So let's just double check we haven't got any history on any of these. It's stuck. Right, so that should have been the first thing that you do. It's stuck on that. So if it gets stuck, you just keep pressing Q and it will become unstuck. The first thing that I want to do is select, even though we've done loads of UV, we actually want to get rid of all, I can't remember if we did that at the end of the modeling, but just select this icon here or go edit, delete type by type history. And you want to just remove all your history from it. Otherwise you'll get stretched polygons and you'll be like, why isn't it unfolding? So you can see these are slightly stretched. And on it, it's good to do it wrong so you can see it. So now if we select that and press Ctrl U or Ctrl U, why is it not my... Okay, so this might also need a freeze transforms on it. So these three icons are, if you're having problems with UVs, just freeze transforms, delete history and center your model. So hopefully, press Ctrl U and now they're all square. So if you see how much it's changed, Ctrl U. Why is it? Sometimes Maya is a bit funny, but anyway. So just delete all history, press Ctrl U and now that's fixed it. Cool, and we'll just do the same, Ctrl U on that. And we'll still make sure what is up and down is down. Then I'll go to set my UV textile density. And I'll do the same for this. Set. Some of the stuff we can get in one UDIM now, which is nice. I'm just going to go to orientate shells so they're perfectly straight. Cool. So I don't think we've gone into the... we have gone into the third one because that's the other side. Cool. So we can hide that. We could probably duplicate that and just put that up there, but let's just UV it for good practice. So I'm just going to UV, delete UVs, and it doesn't matter what angle you're at, just stick a camera-based UV on it. So you can turn these off. So depending on what you're texturing this, you might want to... this is only this is like only a very quick sort of thing, so you may want to UV it more strategically for what you're creating. But for this, it's just going to be very basic UVs. So just going to select cut. We're going to do the same again. Select my UV shell, press Ctrl U. Kind of checker box. Okay, so there is something, I think maybe because it has, it's good to highlight this because if you're having these problems, it's probably because we have not reset our stuff. So I'm going to freeze the transforms, delete all the history, and center the pivots. Probably should have done that first, but you can do it anytime as long as you remember to do it. So I'm going to press Ctrl U, and now that's fixed that. Just going to rotate this round, select Orient, Ctrl U on that. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's correct. So I'm just going to orientate that. Select both of them, then set texel density. And front, left, right, back. Just going to put this up here. Cool. So we're pretty much almost done. We just got to do this back. So just Control 1 on that. UV, delete UVs. You can just go back to non-smoothed, do it camera based. It's just easier to do it when it's not smoothed. So I'm basically selecting all the same edges on each sort of panel. Go cut. Make sure you get all of them. And just select it all, press Ctrl U. Obviously this is going to be our biggest part. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with this. Ctrl U. Oh, no, set, sorry. And let's orientate them. Cool. So what we'll probably do, I'll probably chop these in half. I'm just going to put these up here for now, get them out of the way. And just going to quickly select all of these so I can figure out my organization. Cool, so we've got those UVs there. This is actually the front, that's the back. We did that the wrong way around for what I want, so we will, doesn't matter so much. I'm just going to rotate that around 180, just so my seams are the way I want it. This is going to go up here because it's the back. Oh, make sure you do. That's the front. So as you can see, we've kind of got some issues here. So let's see if we can get it. So we can't get it in within a seam, so we're gonna have to pick an edge to cut. So I'm gonna select this edge here and go to UV toolkit and cut. So now we've pulled this apart. We might have just been too close, maybe. Yeah, let's undo that. I think I'm going to select this one, and then we'll do cut. Because we probably could have got that in there, but I just don't want it to be really tight. We can just pull this one here and cut it on the same edge. I'm just going to pull this up. Cool. So if we select this and just double check, set our text density, it shouldn't have changed. So I'm just going to select all these bits. I'm just going to have a look around, see if there's anywhere that I can optimize my space a little bit better. So I wonder if I can get these into one. If I can get these into one UV space, that would be nice. Save me a little bit of power. Cool. I'm just going to move this over to this one. Just going to move that above there. I don't think we'll be able to put share any other ones because they're quite large pieces. So we're almost done. We've just got to do these last bits here. So same as before, UV, delete UVs. I don't know why I always forget where they are. It's really annoying sometimes. Then UV camera based. Just press F to center onto it and turn my checker box off so I can see it clearer. And I'm just going to select this edge here and this edge here. Then probably this edge. No. This one. Because we're probably not going to see that seam anyway, so might not have to fix that seam, so that'll be nice, not having to fix seams. Although, you probably should fix it, but if we're not going to see it, we're not going to see it. Cool, so I'm just going to go to my UV shell, select it all and press Ctrl U. Then I'll just set my text density, and you can now see this is tiny, because we're obviously working with a smaller object. You still want to make sure that's all correct though. So I'm just going to orientate the shells. And I'm just going to pack these together. Oh, no, I'm doing the wrong thing, so I press Ctrl 1. UV shell. And I'm just going to select these. Select everything apart from that screw. And that screw. Forgot about that one. And we will just find a home for this. So this is a wooden piece, so we'll just put it in here with, we're gonna have lots of spare text, lots of spare UV space, but you can optimize that later on if you want, but let's not worry about it for this. So we've done that one. So now we've got this sort of rubbishy nail. Oh, the best modeled nail in the world. So as before, just delete the UVs. And just do camera based. So let's unwrap this properly. You don't have to do it this because it's such a small piece. Probably could just get away with, yeah, let's not make it too complicated. I'm just going to make an edge there. Cut. Usually if you saw this much closer, you'd probably put another edge here so you can see the sort of metal grain going around, but I'm not too bothered about seeing that. It's a very rough. This stuff we're not even going to see, so I'm just going to select my edge loops there. And you need to make sure you deselect the ones, so that's obviously, if you've modeled it well, it will go all the way around, which we don't want. We only want it to go to there, so I'm just going to cut. Obviously, these are not the best. It's not going to be the best UV, but we're not going to see it. Still, that's not very good. We still want to do the best UVs on stuff that we probably don't see, but for this case, I'm pretty sure most of this is just going to be in geometry anyway, so let's not worry too much. And obviously the UVs are a little bit funky around here, so let's actually do this properly. So I'm just going to select that edge and cut. So if this was how I'd do it anyway. So I'm just going to unfold that, move that out of the way, and you can sort of see it's all wiggly and wavy where it's trying to flatten itself out on a round surface, but it needs an edge. Cut, sorry, so select that edge cut there, UV shell and Control U, and you can now see that that's working much nicer. And because it's such a small thing, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing it because you might want to do it. This, honestly, I don't care because we don't see it. And you could probably shrink that all the way down. So it doesn't, it's going to be so small anyway, so we probably won't have to shrink that down. So I'm just going to set. So I've got everything selected. I'm just going to deselect one thing at a time as I bring it close to the origin, just so it's easier that way. And at the top, I'm just going to put my junk stuff that I don't really need. I'm just going to try and make this as tidy as I can. Cool. Just going to pull this down. I like to, when I'm organizing stuff, I call this my waiting room. Because I know that stuff's not supposed to be in there, so it's nice to put it in there whilst we're organizing stuff though. So I'm going to select everything. UV shell. And this is metal. Usually you would put your metal in a different UDIM. It's one of those things that you might want to do if you've got lots of metal bits, but I think we're only going to end up having a couple. Because now we've done the UVs on this, we will now duplicate it. I'm going to try and, I don't want this to go very long, so we will duplicate this as well. And I know we've got a lot of UVs, but we will just stick it in another UV space. Cool, so we've done that now. And so now our next thing would be to duplicate this. So I'm just Control D, because we don't want to duplicate it and have to UV it like loads of times, because you'll just get tired of that. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to duplicate it, go back to my UV editor, just move it up a bit, just so they're not exactly the same. So Control D. don't want it to be exactly the same. I just want it to be slightly different. So even rotating it a little bit and just not making it so uniform. Ooh, why has that gone so far out? And then select it again. Then I like to work in these cubes, in these squares, so I know that I'm not overlapping stuff. It's just how I do it to keep track of things that I'm not overlapping. So I need to make sure that I select object to world space. Otherwise it will go off on a funny angle again. So just Control D. Paste up the top. I just want to make these a little bit different. And you could even have some hanging out. Maybe. Probably won't see it that much, but I mean, these are different. These are really obvious big nails, so yeah, you can do any nails you want basically. It doesn't matter. I think on the actual one, because it's just on the previous one I just did small nails, but it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you like. Control D. I'm just going to rotate this around 90 degrees. Pull this out. It's a little bit crowded in this viewport. So we could even, once we've done the screw, we can add some screws in. D. And we wouldn't actually have any screws, we'd have screws on the top, I believe. So Control D. And we're not even really going to see these, so don't spend a massive amount of time on them. So I'm just putting them around, trying to do this as fast as I can without no, we don't need them on the top, it's fine. So we'll just do this Control D nail. Just pushing these out the way. And when I duplicate stuff, I do want to make sure I do change it a little bit so it's not exact. Make sure I select all these. I'm just moving them out of the way. Cool. So I think I've done enough nails, I think. And you could use screws, but So now what we want to do is just select all our nails and make sure none of them are overlapping. So we'll just hide all our body parts. And you can see all our nails. Did we hide? Where's that one? I swear there was one up there. Yeah, must have hidden it by accident. So I'm just gonna select them all. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that means we have 2 on top of each other, which I think are our last 2. So, oh no. No, don't want to go. No, I want to select it in here. So I'm just going to pull that up there. Just double check none of these have got duplicates underneath. It's the easiest way to check. Obviously, if you've got loads and loads of things, you don't want to do it this way. You want to. So our duplicates are on these ones. So if I select all of these, I can now see all my nails. So I kind of want to, even though I've split them down into little sort of spaces, I want to, first of all, let's select these. I probably should have done this first, but I did do it first, I think. It's fine. Double check they're in the correct texel density. So I'm just going to pack these in a little bit nicer. And we're almost done with the UVing. We've just got our one screw to do, so hopefully that won't take too long. It's just I like to, if I'm doing lots of duplicates, I want to make sure that I UV it first. Because you don't want to duplicate loads of things, then end up having to UV them all, because then that turns into a bit of a nightmare. So what I'm actually going to do is select all these screws. And I'm going to go to mesh and combine them all so they're all just one piece. Freeze transforms and delete the history. And I'm going to put this into my waiting room. No, they're already there in the right place. So let's unhide everything. Double check we're on the right place. Yep. So I'm going to put my nails. And got a lot of empty nodes here, so that we can just delete those, empty groups, sorry. So now we've just got our screw to do. Switch Control 1. It's F. You can see it's pretty nasty. It's a pretty basic screw. It's nothing amazing. So we'll just do the same again. UV, or not Xgen. UV, delete UVs. UV camera base. So I'm just going to go around and select my edges that I want to cut. And you can turn these off. No. So I'm going to select those inside and outside ones there. Cut there. My dog is sniffing under the door. I can hear him sniffling. So I know we've got some, it's not exactly the best screw, but it's something basic. If you want to spend more time modeling it nicer, that's absolutely fine. But I just wanted the basic sort of essence of a screw. Just minimize that right in the way. Cool. And it's not particularly great down here, but let's not worry about that. Select that and cut. Select that and sew that back up. Cool. So we've made our cuts here. And I'm fairly confident that we can just stretch that as fine. So go back to our UV editor. Go to our UV shell, press Ctrl U, fold. Let's make sure what is up is up. Check we're doing squares. Yep. Ctrl U. Ctrl U on here. Obviously, we've got this cone shaped. It's a little bit difficult when you've got cone shaped objects, but we can do a triplanar projection. So don't worry about that. And that is that's gone a little bit funny. That's not how I want it to be. Let's see if we can optimize that. Oh no, not cut. Optimize. Oh, why is that like that? So we've probably got an edge here that we need to cut. In fact, let's not worry about that. This is what another. So we can go around and fix the edges. That's fine. You can go around and fix them, but we've used our camera projection tool just for starting things, but we can actually use it now for creating a fairly good UV. So I use my camera projection for that to make that more logical. I can optimize. You can see it's still breaking it, but Control Z, and I'm quite happy with that. So that should be fine. Just be careful with camera projections. They could stretch stuff. And Control U on this one. And I'm honestly not that bothered about the inside of there. You can, as long as it's UV'd, and we probably won't see any detail. It'll just be almost a color almost in there. So I'm just going to set my text density. You can see how small it's going to be. So I'm just going to, I've got them all selected. And as I bring one UV to the origin, I'm just going to deselect it. It's just easier for me to make sure I get everything together. Cool. So now we've got that. I'm going to make sure everything, what's up is up and what's down is down. I'm just going to organize this just so it doesn't take up a huge amount of textile space. Not that it will anyway. I'm just going to put this into my waiting room. And we're pretty much done with the UVing. We just need to now put this somewhere in there like that. We can close that down. Oh, we still do need it. So let's duplicate. Oh, let's Control D and duplicate it. And let's just so let's make sure that we're not on top of each other. Control D and bring this down to here. I don't want them exactly the same. Bring one up here. And just make sure you do a little rotation or something maybe. Then we need to make sure that we move these UVs as well. So I can pull that down, just enough so it's out of the way. You know what, let's Control D. Let's put one at the top here as well, just for fun. So we might see it, you don't know. Just so it's something a little bit different. Not that it matters. Cool. So let's check that. Put that over here. Let's select all our screws. Put them in nice and tight. So let's select everything. Select our UV shower. And let's bring all this up. So organize that there. And I know it's quite a lot of wasted textile space, but it's kind of it's the basics. Like if you had a massive object, you kind of want to do this anyway. You want to make sure that you're kind of keeping your metals in a UDIM and keeping your woods in a UDIM, keeping it all organized. This is just a really simplified version of a good working process. So we're actually pretty much done. So for the next one, we will sculpt it up. So before finishing this, we will tidy it all up. So I'm just going to select all my screws, delete history, and I'm just going to mesh, combine these because I don't want them all separate. It doesn't bother me that they're all one. And I'm just going to make sure they're all named. It's called Geo. So these are all called front, so they're not the front, so back. Front. So it's really good practice to sort of make sure everything's named correctly, because if you have to give this to someone else and it's all like crazy naming, it's they will be very annoyed. And we're just giving it very basic naming. You can give it anything you want as long as it's easy for you to remember and easy for someone else to sort of understand what you've named it. Cool, so we've named it all. It's all up. But oh no, we've still got this perch. Forgot about that. Did we UV that? We did UV it. Did we put it in a space? Yes, we did. Geo. Ooh, so I'm just going to put this under here. Cool. So if we select everything, turn on, well, we've our checker boxes already on, and we can have a look around, and we can just last minute check that there's nothing weird going on. Everything seems to be up is up, and I think going down is down, so it's all good. So we're pretty much done. So you might want to save that. So I'm just going to save scene, and I've saved this as bird box asset, and I'm going to save this as I like to name it so UV 2 save. And I'm just going to underscore this low, because before we take this into Zbrush, I want to, so when we subdivide this, that's actually not too bad. It's fine. No, I think that should be all right, actually. In fact, no, let's do it. Let's I want to show so we can compare it. So I will select all of these. Just going to mesh. I'm just going to stick a smooth on it once, because what this is going to do now is all our UVs are still absolutely fine. It's just giving us more supporting edges for when it gets smoothed. And what I'll do, I'll undo that because I didn't actually duplicate that first. So Control D. And I'll just call this bird box high. Hide that. And you don't necessarily have to do this. It's a very small object. It just makes it easier it just makes it easier for sculpting, because we're still going to go back to our low res one that we get out of Zbrush. So I'm just going to put a 1 subdivision on it. Then freeze it, delete. Cool, so we should be pretty much done. Everything's looking good. Everything's looking round. Got our nasty little screw there. So finally, the last thing that we need to do is just select all our geo. And we need to export this out for Zbrush. So I'm going to select all my geo first. And I'm going to get File, Export Selection. And you should already be in your project settings, so we'll be in Scenes. I don't want to put it in there. I'm just going to go to, because it doesn't make one for ZBrush. I think you can customize these, that it does, but I'm just going to put it in Data, and I'm going to make a new folder called ZBrush. And then double click in there and make a new folder for base mesh. And I'm going to call this bird box base mesh V01, because when we finish sculpting it, we will export that one out as our second base mesh, because it will slightly change. So just if you select export, and that should have exported nicely, and we're pretty much done. We've modeled it, we've done our UVs, and we've sort of prepped it for ZBrush. We've added some extra subdivisions, so it does subdivide a little bit nicer, but it's not always necessary. But yeah, it's only a simple bird box, so let's not worry. But yeah, so in the next one, we'll go into ZBrush and sort of break up the edges, because these are too mathematically sharp and a bit disgusting. So we want to break it up a bit and add a little bit of like hard detail to it. So yeah, so if you've enjoyed this tutorial, just over an hour, but yeah. Hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.